Hello everyone and welcome to the 20th episode of the iGaming show presented by Paramount Commerce. I'm your host Varad Mehta, and in this podcast we analyze gaming industry trends with experts from various gaming organizations. In today's episode, we'll explore the importance of AML and compliance in a regulated iGaming market with Mondiu Jaiyesimi, the Senior Manager of AML Regulatory Compliance and Forensics at M&P. So without further ado, let's get the show rolling.
Okay, so Mondiu, how we always begin this podcast is by asking you a few fun questions. So first of all, I have to ask you, Kilo en Chile?
How did you get that question?
I just wanted to ask you, Kilo en Chile?
That's really funny. How would you want me to respond?
How would you respond if there was like a one way you could respond back to Kilo en Chile? What would be the correct way to say it? All good. Good.
Yeah, all good. In English, all good. In Yoruba language, you can say "Kosira pete."
Kosira pete? Okay, love it. So that's some Yoruba lessons for people who just tuned into the episode. Technically not my first fun questions, but this is the first one that I had for you on a deeper level. You've lived in Nigeria, you lived in the United Kingdom and in Canada. So in each country, what are some important lessons you learned that really shaped you as a person?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Wow, how do you start? I mean, growing up in Nigeria was I completed my first degree. In Nigeria, I attended a British style boarding school. It's a grammar school. It's boys only school, and really shaped my my mentality in terms of discipline and perseverance and sort of like that thinking of knowing you can really do anything if you put your heart to it. It was a critical step in my development and shaped me to the person I am today. And then in England, England just made everything make more sense. So England was almost perfect because the way I envisioned Nigeria, England was like an advanced Nigeria, if I can put it that way. I didn't experience a lot of cultural differences, maybe because our educational curriculum, British, the schools I went to and everything, it was all British curriculum. So the culture wasn't different either, in terms of the way people spoke, the things we had learned before. But one thing I really liked was how polite people were at the time, because this was I arrived in England in 2010, so people were really polite, and I lived in Guildford, schooled at the University of Surrey, so it was quite interesting. And then Canada is different. Canada is North America, so there's a lot of cultural nuances that you have to learn. I understood pretty quickly that this is a completely different ball game. But I met a lot of nice people as well as I started working my way through the Canadian system. I would say the similarities that I found, it's like people are nice. Like Canadians generally can consider Canadians to be nice. So I thought that was fun. And professionally, I think Canada helped shape my professional, the way I view my professional journey. Canada shaped it a lot quicker for me than when I was in the UK.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Mondiu. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now going to the topic of discussion, something that is so important and not too much talked about, which is AML and compliance. And for iGaming operators moving into a regulated kind of market, what are some basic things they need to understand? So my first question for you, Mondiu, would be, what are some of the biggest challenges right now that operators are facing when they're applying for an iGaming license in a regulated space like Ontario?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So for you to obtain a license, you have to go through the AGCO um, and iGo, iGaming, iGaming Ontario. So a couple of things to understand. Okay, so the AGCO regulates iGaming in Ontario, and iGo manages all the operators. So that's a key distinction between the two. But for you to get a license, you have to go through iGo and the AGCO. So the iGo market was established in 2021, but the go live, and what the go live means is operators that came into the Ontario market were able to go live on April 4th, 2022. So right now we have about 50 operators and 84 gaming sites. So now challenges that you can face coming in, you have to be prepared because iGo maintains a strict and rigorous AML program, and they follow the Criminal Code in Canada and the Process of Crime, Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Act. So they are going to ensure that you comply with those obligations based on their policies and procedures, the AML policies and procedures, AML policy, and their regulatory obligations that they follow. So a couple of things to put into consideration is that you have to be ready. So there are a couple of attestations that you have to have in handy. So those attestations include your training attestation. So first of all, you have to develop an AML program. So that AML program will include building your policies and procedures, risk assessment, and training. So that training has to go through an attestation. So you have to confirm that all your staff members have been trained. So that can be challenging if you're not used to the Canadian AML landscape. Policies and procedures and risk assessment, you would pretty much complete a risk assessment attestation based on your business, based on who the players are going to be, the markets that you're going to be operating in, and a few other factors to consider. And after that, you would have to go through what's called a data and systems readiness attestation to confirm that your data and systems, your AML systems, are ready and compliant with AML obligations. So those are a couple of things for you to consider. And then, of course, your staff or anyone that's going to be responsible for accessing reporting tools. So we have what's called a FWR. So that's the FINTRAC web reporting tool. iGo would expect you to actually access that as well. And then you'll be able to confirm that your staff or yourself as the compliance person can access it. So those are some of the things to consider, and they all come with their own challenges as well.
And you mentioned, AGCO, and you mentioned iGo,
Mhm.
but can you, Mondiu, also explain in simple terms how AGCO, iGo, and as you mentioned, FinTrack at the end, how they kind of work together to regulate Ontario's gaming space?
Okay, so AGCO is the regulator. So AGCO is the license provider, if I can put it that way, for any iGaming operator that's coming into the market. So AGCO should be considered as the regulator of the Ontario regulated market, and iGo is responsible for ensuring that each operator complies with regulatory obligations and they manage their operations as well. So before you are confirmed as an operator, you have to sign an operating agreement with iGo, and then you have to obtain a license with AGCO. So look at AGCO as the regulator that oversees compliance, and iGo is the subsidiary of AGCO that manages any entity or operator that deals in iGaming in Ontario. Did that distinction make sense to
Yes,
you?
yes, yes. That's perfectly explained. And what
Yep.
role does FINTRAC play on in all of this?
So FINTRAC is the Canadian FIU. So what that means is the Financial Intelligence Unit of Canada, and it's also the enforcer of the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Terrorist Financing Act, the PCML-TFA. So FINTRAC regulates iGO because iGO is a reporting entity. So the operators are not reporting entities. So the operators do not report to FINTRAC directly. iGO reports to FINTRAC directly, and FINTRAC under the PCML-TFA categorizes the section 5 of the PCML-TFA categorizes reporting entities based on sectors. So the sector that the iGO falls under will be casinos. So all the regulatory obligations, the associated regulations, the PCML-TFA relating to casinos will apply to iGO, and FINTRAC will come in for an examination. FINTRAC can fine iGO if they find iGO to be non-compliant with regulatory obligations, and they can also provide support for them as well. Does that make sense?
That's a really good breakdown that you provide. I think kind of helps us, envision what each kind of player does within the regulated space. My next question, Mondiu, would be that even when I look at, certain industry events right now, when it's linked to iGaming, you see a lot of conversations about AML, which is anti-money laundering. It's a core piece that's being spoken about within the industry. Could you perhaps share why it's one of the most spoken about topics, and what are some key considerations that operators should know about AML and how they can be best compliant within a regulated space such as Ontario?
Hey, that's a good question. So, the reason anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing is important, I would say, is that it is crucial to protect the integrity of of Canada's financial framework and financial landscape. And gaming is one of the industries that is seen as potentially vulnerable to money laundering and terrorist financing. And I would say casinos and gaming in particular. So, I mean, not just those industries. You would also have to consider the fact that we have more sectors that are vulnerable. However, it's the government's responsibility to ensure that it. So when I say government, I mean FINTRAC, to ensure that any industry or sector that is vulnerable to money laundering or terrorist financing is identified, and there are risk mitigating measures that are put in place. So one of those ways is to ensure that they are a reporting entity, or they are regulated by the government, and they are subject to scrutiny like examinations, and they also have to follow regulatory obligations. So for the key things to consider, if you are an iGaming operator, you have to ensure you've appointed somebody to oversee your AML program. So that would be a compliance officer. I don't think iGO would even listen to you if you don't have that in place. And you also need an AML program for you to receive your license from AGCO and sign that operating agreement with iGO. So it's absolutely crucial to have one in place. You would follow the policies and procedures and risk assessment guidelines that will be provided to you by iGO, and then of course you have to train. iGO provides you with the opportunity to use your own risk assessment, your own player risk assessment considerations and methodology, but if not, you get to use iGO's. And then of course you also have to audit your AML program on a periodic basis. So I think after 4 years, if you do it internally, after 4 years you have to go out and do it independently. So those are the key considerations, but I can talk more about operating effectiveness as well, and some of the issues that you can face.
Yes, please. And even if you can mix it up with, we're because you're an AML and compliance expert, we'll also like to kind of mix in compliance there. It's something that we don't talk about often, but it has such an important, it's such an important backbone of the industry. So
Yep.
for operators, why is it so important to kind of, practice, what are the best practices in maintaining regulatory compliance over time? And what role would someone like you would play in that space?
So we provide support to a lot of iGaming operators and any reporting entity that has to comply with FINTRAC's guidelines. So where we come in, it ranges from if you need to audit your AML program because it is a regulatory obligation for you to get that program reviewed periodically, at least once every 2 years. And then if you've done it internally for 4 years, you have to get it done externally. So we provide that support as well. If you do not have adequate experience within your compliance function, which is a common thing, it's a common issue that we face. You can externally source professionals who understand the regulatory requirements, the PCML, TFA, IGO's, AML, ETF policies and procedures and requirements, reporting obligations. You can hire somebody to provide you with that support, and it could be on an advisory level as well. If you go through an examination or review and you need to perform what's called remediation validation, say you've provided you've remediated all the issues found by IGO or any other regulatory body, we can help you provide that level of validation and also report to any external party that might be looking for that. We also help with reporting with some additional level of quality assurance. But if you're struggling to report to IGO, because as an operator, you can't report directly to FINTRAC, you have to go through IGO, even if you're going to be using the FWR tool. You don't have filing privileges, but you can impute the data and send it directly to IGO via F2R, FWR. We can provide that support to you as well. So those are some of the few service offerings that we've provided in this space.
Yeah, and next question would be, what role does technology play in strengthening AML compliance for iGaming operators?
A lot. Technology plays a key role in ensuring that iGaming operators can meet their regulatory obligations in a reasonable way. Because I think one of the first things to consider is your ongoing monitoring requirement as an iGaming operator, because you're required to monitor your players' activities and to ensure that their KYC, their know your client or know your player data is up to date. So think about transactions, wagering activity in thousands, hundreds of thousands. If you are a big operator, how would you monitor those transactions? You can't do them manually, right? So this is where technology comes in. So from a transaction monitoring perspective, you want to get in automated tools for monitoring transactions and flagging transactions that might be deemed to be potentially suspicious. So there's several tools that have, artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities that can help you identify red flags or typologies, like, structuring, for instance. You can create like a rule that will be able to identify that for you. So iGaming operators rely on your transaction monitoring tools. There's several tools that you can leverage, but it's really, really important to have one that can provide you with really good quality alerts or transaction monitoring cases that you can adjudicate. And IGO will be looking into your tool as well to ensure it makes sense and it can be tested. So that's transaction monitoring. Name screening also comes into play. Like, technology can help you really consolidate those risk factors that you're worried about, like politically exposed persons, sanctions, negative news, terror watch list. So you can have a tool that would scan your entire player database, or that would screen a player's name at onboarding and provide you with results. So it's really critical if you have a tool. There are several tools out there that have that case management capability. So they can do name screening and they can also do transaction monitoring. And it has the case management capability that allows you to create a case or create an alert, and then the details of the adjudication will be provided, and there will be a clear audit trail and everyone can actually see it. Another key role that technology plays is in reporting. So because you have all these transactions and you have to report casino disbursement reports to FINTRAC, for instance, via iGo, you need to be able to comply with the 24-hour rule. 24-hour rule comes in when you have multiple disbursements that total up to 10,000 within 24 hours. How do you track that? Manually, it could be impossible. You need to have systems in place that can do that for you automatically. So really smart systems can identify players and transactions within a defined time frame, and they will flag reportable transactions for you to then aggregate, validate, and then send off. So those are really key. And then you put all these competencies together and all these models together, you also have to be able to test. So iGo is particularly looking for the testing or model validation competencies right now. So during your effectiveness review, they will expect you to demonstrate how you are going to test, who is going to do the testing, and how you're going to present the results, just to ensure that those models or the systems are working as intended. So that's sort of like the role that technology is playing now.
Such a great breakdown that you gave, Mondiu. And my last question would be, as you're an industry expert, and even getting your expertise through ML and compliance, are you, or do you anticipate any regulatory changes that could impact licensing or compliance, or even any changes you might be expecting within AML and Ontario's iGaming market? And potentially there's hopefully going to be more regulated markets. So do you anticipate any changes within this year or next year?
No, I mean, with respect to iGaming, we don't anticipate anything major. I think the biggest change that's currently affecting iGaming operators now is the cyber incident that FINTRAC suffered last year. So it really affected the ability of iGaming operators to report, and it also affected iGo. So there's been some backlog, but I think it's being resolved now. So we have to keep an eye on that. And then a couple of reports. So we moved from Gen 1 reports to Gen 2. So there's been significant changes to the report format for the reports that go to FINTRAC. So, but FINTRAC's done a very good job in giving everybody time to get used to it. So iGo's gone through that as well to ensure everyone's ready to report. Another one is the sanctions evasion. So sanctions regulatory compliance is now housed within FINTRAC's purview. So FINTRAC expects iGo to report any sanctions evasion issues. So what that means is when operators find something that relates to sanctions evasion, they have to file an STR, a suspicious transaction report, and they have to send that to iGo, and iGo will subsequently forward that disclosure to FINTRAC. So that's quite significant. What has also changed is the terrorist property report, like I mentioned before. They've scrapped that term. It's now called listed person or entity property reports, which is also significant. And iGo, as I think they went through a couple of changes within their circle relating to operators in terms of reporting and some of the other things that they might need from them. But this happens once you become an approved operator within the Ontario market.
I love it. Love it. Thank you. I really want to thank you, Mondiu, because this is one of those topics that is less spoken about, but it is such an important part of the regulated iGaming market, and especially understanding AML could be seen as a little challenging, could be intimidating, but I'm so happy that at each moment you kind of broke it down so nicely for us and also helped me with Yoruba. And I promise I'm going to practice it more. And whenever we do an episode next time, the entire fun question part will be in Yoruba.
No worries. No problems at all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're
much, Mondiu,
welcome.
for this.
Thank you for having me.
AML and compliance play a vital role in a regulated iGaming market as they help in preventing fraud, protecting players, and ensuring industry integrity. I want to thank Mondiu Jaiyesimi, the Senior Manager of AML Regulatory Compliance and Forensics at MNP, for joining us today and providing his expertise. If you have any questions for us or Mondiu, then please do comment them down below. Please don't forget to like and share our episode and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the episode transcript and more amazing content, please visit our website at paramountcommerce.com. Thank you so much for tuning into the iGaming Show. I'm your host, Varad Mehta, and until next time, keep gaming.